We're going to get into Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle. All right, this is Mysteries of Beaver Dunes. Now, I'm only going to read a small section, and for those of you that want to read the rest, it's a pretty good article. But this is by Paul Dale Roberts of Halo Paranormal Investigations. Again, you can find this in Paranormal Underground Magazine, and you can get your free Paranormal Underground magazines for a year if you just go to paranormalunderground.net and tell them Josh sent you. Anyways, all right. Mm-hmm. This magazine's awesome. Anyways, and there's so much more articles and so many things in here. All right, so he says, my uncle, George Roberts, was born and raised in the town of Lehigh, Oklahoma. As a little boy, he heard many stories about Beaver Dunes Park in Beaver County, Oklahoma. George says that this place is also known as Oklahoma's Bermuda Triangle or the Shaman's Portal, as a result of all the mysterious disappearances that have occurred there over the years. Legend has it that Spanish explorers witnessed their friends vanishing into flashes of green light in the 1500s. The Native Americans warned the Spanish explorers to stay out of this forbidden area, but the explorers didn't listen, so some of those explorers disappeared, never to be seen again. Locals say that there's a portal and people are transported to an alternate dimension within the dunes. Spanish explorer Francisco Vasquez de Coronado's journal cites 3 of his men disappearing into flashes of green light while exploring the land. Locals also mentioned that a UFO once crashed in this area. Mm-hmm. Beaver Dunes Park is a lot like the Zone of Silence in Mexico. George says when he visited the park, he did see green flashing lights off in the distance. He avoided the lights, not wanting to become another missing person. Now, the article will go on. They do talk about portals. They're also going to make some comparisons to Massachusetts, which there's a triangle in there. And they're also going to talk about some giants, 10-foot giants, things like that. And of course, there was the tribe of Native Americans, the Mini-Washington. I hope I said that right. They used to battle red hair, red hair like a buffalo, one eye centered on his forehead, a horn that sticks out, backbone like a jagged saw. Pretty crazy. But those giants, and there's other actually Native Americans that talked about red-haired giants as well back in the day. So it's pretty interesting to think about all that. But a lot of cryptids, a lot of UFOs. Guys, I suggest read this entire article. You really need to check this out. So I'll go to you first on this one, Stacy. What are your initial thoughts off the bat on this?
Well, I don't know much about it other than what you just read. The area in Massachusetts, I've recently learned about a lot of Yeti sightings, UFOs, even little people like what they call fairies and elves and things like that. Of course, in that area, they've also have a lot of caverns that, stretch literally from like where you're at all the way up the East Coast. That it's just this network of caverns that things seem to live in there, and they don't have to go above ground in order to go from one end of the country to the other. I don't know if that's consistent here, whether there's caverns that have, usually where you have UFOs, you have cavernous mountains too,
right?
Or legends of skinwalkers and beasts of that kind.
Well, and I wonder if that would just because it gives cryptids and places a chance to hide, like a place that's, not going to be explored a lot. It's not going to be visible a lot or whatnot. Who knows? It's got to go hand in hand, I would think, you're not going to see many cryptids in the middle of like a bare desert. Usually like when you talk about like Skinwalker Ranch or something like that, you're talking about they still have rocks and some caves in those rocks and hills and stuff like that. So, it's not just like in the middle of a dune sea desert. You don't usually see anything there. So,
Well, some of it too comes down to Native American wars. I mean, the Native Americans, Indian tribes had a lot of wars in between each other. You had the Ute Indians, the Cherokee, the Mohawks. All of them, they all hated each other for various reasons. They were not cohesive in any way. They didn't actually start being more cohesive until the white man came along and they're like, you know what? The enemy of my enemy, that kind of thing. But they would often throw up curses or pass along the idea that this land was cursed as a form of protection. Superstition was, the caution or the danger sign. You don't go here because this is what will happen to you.
Right.
That kind of legend carries forward. Whether or not it's based off of anything real, I don't know. But I know superstition can act as a form of security system for, tribal nations.
Right. Well, and I could easily get into like a discussion about giants and Native Americans and the lore on that. But I want to get into like the triangle aspect of this, the portal aspect. I find that very fascinating because, as we have the Bermuda Triangle, obviously is the most famous. Everybody pretty much, you mentioned that, everybody kind of knows, it's really almost become an adjective as well. You know what I mean? For people. So, and then you were talking about there's like one in Massachusetts, and I'm sure there's others. I'm sure, somebody could be watching this and they're going to mention other, like, oh, what about this triangle and this triangle? Like, there's all kinds of those like portal zones. So it's fascinating. Now, I will say this, for those of you that maybe haven't never read like the Old Testament of the Bible, but like there's portals mentioned in it. If you read the book of Enoch, which is supposed to be in the Bible, but those ancient scriptures also talk about portals. So we're talking about portals that are going into we're talking portals right into like rooms right before God's throne. So portals are a form of travel, in my opinion, from what I can gather. And it's just wild to me. So that there's these portals out there that these other type of beings, obviously not us, are able to traverse. Maybe we use portals psychically or something, but as far as physically, I don't think we're not doing no Doctor Strange, sparkle circle, Disney sparkle circle or something portal. But I think it's very fascinating about these portals. What's your take on portals and maybe these locations?
Well, science just came out with a paper saying that that's very possible. Not necessarily what we were thinking with Doctor Strange, but they called them time slips, where there's a crack or a Swiss cheese hole in time itself that allows you to go from one time to another time and even a different place in another time, where it could be, you're in New Orleans and all of a sudden you step around the corner and all of a sudden you're standing in 1965 Gettysburg, and you're just not knowing what just happened. And it only lasts for a few moments, but you were someplace else at a different time and you were the weird guy out.
Right.
It didn't, like I said, last very long, but it was just long enough to create a legend about it. Science is saying these things are very plausible in math. Whether they're actually happening or not, they can't prove or disprove it at this point. But they say that in the math is consistent based off what we know about time and gravity. So
I think when we all were scared about 1999 to 2000, the millennial, I think everyone was like freaking out, like, oh, it's what's going to happen, when the clock strikes 12 or whatever, what's going to happen. And then it was the Mayan calendar, right? 2012.
Uh-huh.
I think somewhere along that line, I think life did fucking end.
Yeah. Well,
I think we're living in an alternate weird version.
the
I
internet
think
says is
I
when
think I went through one of these portals you're talking about, and I'm experiencing along with everybody else now, but some alternate where up is down and down is up, and everything's weird now. Like everything is just so different from like before 2000 or even 2012. Like at some point, it's almost like, did I just slip into another dimension? Like some weird Mandela thing going on.
you're not alone. You're not alone. People said that the very moment that we slipped into an alternate universe is when they killed Harambe, the gorilla. That's when everything went to shit.
Sorry, I'm drinking my coffee. Had to get some caffeine in. But Lightbringer, yes, I did see where you made it in there. Hey. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too far. I'm trying to stay focused because you and I can get on all kinds of one thing to another because and I think because as you and I know, there's so many things that tie in together, really.
Right.
But when it comes to these zones, I just wonder if maybe these really are like, okay, like how we might have interstates and we might have roads and we have dirt roads and trails, right? I think that maybe these could be some kind of super portal highways. Like these particular spots could be just versions of whatever, some nexus of whatever. And this could be explained why so many weird things happen in those particular places. Because I'm sure there's got to be all these supernatural connections from these portals. Obviously, one portal has to connect to whatever. And I'm sure all these portals are connected, all these highways of supernatural stuff. And there's got to be these major hub or these nexus points. And I think maybe, who knows, maybe the Bermuda Triangle and these Beaver Dunes parks. I'm sure there's got to be other places all throughout the world where these super highways, these supernatural highways are colliding and weird shit ensues.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of truth that comes through in the stories. Remember Pirates of the Caribbean, where they were going back and forth between Davy Jones' locker. Up was down and down was up.
Right.
And the way that they traveled was in the flash of a green light, right at dusk or right at dawn, depending on where you were at. Dusk is dawn and dawn is dusk, up is down and down is up, and that transition was a green flash. So what they're saying, they're telling us that this isn't just legend, it's something that is palatable.
Right. And I think it's hard because science, that's why they've always, referred to anything like this as pseudoscience, because you can't just recreate it. So it drives scientists crazy. They think like if they can just go out to the Bermuda Triangle or they can go to Beaver Dunes Park or wherever and just set up some instruments, that they're going to find some kind of anomaly readings or anomalous readings that they can like reproduce. And then they can say like, oh, look, here's a portal. Like we found like the plane and you can stick your hand into the portal and, they just expect that they're going to be able to find something tangible. And I don't think they understand that that's not how it works.
Yeah. They think that what exists in the past exists all the way through as it normally would, like carbon decay. The carbon-14 radiation that they analyze, it has a constant, according to them, a constant level of decay. It's like a clock,
right,
or an atomic clock, and it can be measured because it is a clock. They think that all science works on that same level, that everything has a constant tone or constant flow that all they have to do is just tap into that flow and get their readings, and it proves it yay or nay. And that's not how things work. You know?
Right. And in all fairness too, it's like when everything we have is based off our periodic table, and we create instruments, everything is created from those things to measure things that we know of, but there's probably things like, if you were able to say what is a ghost truly made of, whatever that energy is, whatever that actual energy is, not maybe like if it triggers an EMF, or that, ghosts are not just EMF. If it was that simple, we would be able to find, we would use EMF meters as a ghost meter.
Yeah. Well, we'd be able to tap into on the spectrum level too.
Right. So my point is whatever they're made of, it's something that we just don't have the technology to detect, because our periodic table, however we combine it and create whatever, we just can't pick it up. We can't. We just can't see it yet. We can't grasp it yet.
Yeah.
And maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe we're not meant to. There always could be, again, that absolute veil that we just cannot penetrate.
It's frustrating on that level too, because science has things that are just as metaphysical as ghosts or cryptids or anything like that, but they've written a math equation based on it. So to them, it's real.
Right.
Dark energy and dark matter, for instance, they say that dark matter is 80% of the universe, and it exists absolutely everywhere except right here. They can't physically tell you what dark matter is because it doesn't exist right here, and it's 80% of the universe. Gold consists of 0.00002% of the universe, but here it's everywhere. You can find gold flecks in dirt. It literally falls out of the sky from the stars,
right?
And you can find it all over the earth. It's scattered all over the earth. But dark matter, scientists will fight tooth and nail saying that it's a real thing, but they can't tell you what it is or where it's at. It's on a chalkboard somewhere saying it's real, so they have to say it's real.
Well, as we kind of wrap up that last segment, I want to leave with or end with a thought about, so Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Okay, you remember the movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm making a point. So for those of you that have not seen it, spoiler alert, it's an old movie. I think we're beyond spoilers.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen it, when the UFO, there is a point at which they like return, like Elvis, Amelia Earhart, like, you know what I mean? Like some of these lost, like, these mysteries. Now, I'm not saying that that's ever going to happen. What I'm getting at is, do you think that there could be a day when all of these missing Bermuda Triangle objects, people, do you think that we will see a reemergence of that someday? Or do you think that's just going to be gone?
Some of them, like the Navy pilots that, were flying the Spitfires that went out on a mission, the training mission, and then they just disappeared.
Right.
I think they're going to come back someday. And they may have actually already, and have been sequestered or quarantined, that kind of thing.
Right.
The government is really good about seizing things that make the question mark come about. They don't like the public asking too many questions about anything, much less, time travel.
Right.
But some of it, yeah. A lot of it, probably not. Amelia Earhart, turns out that according to some scientists, they did actually find her, but they didn't know it was her when they found her because she had already been a skeleton and torn apart by coconut crabs. And, they took her back to Japan, right before World War II.
Right.
And her remains have been there ever since, according to one scientist.
Yeah. I mean, and I also heard some other recent article where they were talking about that they might have found her wreckage or something. I don't know. There's always some new claims. I think every once in a while to roll around, but it was a credible article I was reading. I was like going, oh, they actually seem like they got some pretty valid evidence. But I think there was some logistical issues in the last little bit there, but I don't know. We'll see. Like I think there's going to be a combination of there was legitimate accidents out there. Probably some of these areas mess up instrumentation and cause accidents, but some of the stuff just seems too big of a mystery of like just complete disappearances. It's really odd.